Okay, class, picking up where we left off at, we were doing the range, and now we have 2, so then our next y value would be 3, and our final y value would be 5. And that is our final answer here for the domain and the range. Now we go here for D, the domain. Now the domain is all of these values here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to abbreviate it instead of writing all of these letters out. That is a domain. The range is your output here. Let's see, the lowest number. Now, if you notice here, there's an extra number here in this range, but it's not being used. So you do not write that 35 down because it's not being used. Or this 195. So what I'll do is I'll just cross those out because those are not being used. So now we will go with the lowest number here, which is 197. Then we have 206. And then 370. 404. And then 445. So you all have to be very careful. Do not list anything that's not being used. Yes?
On the test or the exam, would you like us to write that out?
You talking about with the?
Yes.
As long as you're, okay. Put it like this. Yes, you can abbreviate it. However, if you have values that start off with the same letter, then at least one of them, write at least one of them out where you could show the differentiation of the letters. But aside from that, you could abbreviate it. And that's for domain and range. Okay, now, we have the domain and range here. The domain, now remember, it's all of the x values. If you notice here, it starts at -5 and it goes as far as 4. Now, what I'm going to have to do here, instead of using these braces, because we're going to have to write interval notation here, so I'm going to have to do this as brackets to let you know it includes all values from -5 to +4. Does everyone follow that? Okay, now the range, we will have to do the same thing. If you notice, the lowest value of the range here would be -4. And the highest value of the range here would be +4. So -4 and +4 both will be in brackets. Okay, now we go here to F. We have our domain. We're still going to do interval notation. And it's included. So it'll be -5. And it goes all the way over to +5. Now for the range. The lowest value of your range here goes a little bit below -2. So we could just say that this is like, let's just say it's -2.1. And then the highest that it goes up to is about, let's say, 3.1. Okay? Now, number 6, it said let f of x equals a -3/2 x plus 7. Find the following by hand. Now, just because of space, I'm going to use some of this clear space up here. So we have -3/2. Well, let me put, so it'd be f of -4 is equal to -3/2 times -4, because we know we would substitute in -4 wherever x appears, plus 7. Now, -3/2 times a -4, we know if you use your calculator, that will give you a +6. And 6 plus 7 will give you 13. So your final answer here would be 13. Are there any questions? All right, now it says x when f of x is equal to 5/3. Now we know from lessons past that f of x, g of x, and h of x really means y. This is saying y is equal to 5/3. So that means that this f of x is 5/3. So we can start this off as 5/3 is equal to a -3/2 x plus 7. Now, we want to get x by itself. Now first we can start off by getting rid of these denominators. The common denominator of all these values is 6. So we can multiply everything by 6, and this will give us 10 is equal to negative 9x plus 7. Because we will actually it's supposed to be plus 42. Because every value is supposed to be multiplied by 6. Okay, now we want to get x by itself. So we will subtract 42 on both sides. And this will give us a negative 32 is equal to negative 9x. Now as you see here, I don't have enough room, so I'm going to transfer this over here. So it'll be negative 32 is equal to a negative 9x. We divide each side by negative 9. And negative divided by negative we know is positive. And 32 and 9 has nothing else in common. So we could leave it as 32 over 9. So we could write x equals 32 over 9. And that would be your final answer. Now for C, they want the y-intercept. Isn't this already in slope-intercept form? Since it's in slope-intercept form, we know 7 is the y-intercept. So we will write it as an ordered pair as 0, 7. Okay, now the x-intercept. The x-intercept is saying that y is equal to 0. So we will make f of x 0. So we have 0 is equal to a negative 3/2 x plus 7. And then we will solve for x. We can subtract 7 on both sides. We have negative 7 equals a negative 3/2 x. Now we have to get x by itself. So we'll multiply each side by the reciprocal, which would be a negative 2/3. So now, we know that negative 2/3 times a negative 7. A negative times a negative is positive, and if we put a 1 under the 7, that would give us 14/3 when we multiply this. And then that would equal x. And so, what we would do next is we will write this as an ordered pair. So it'll be 14/3, comma 0. And that will be your x-intercept. Okay, next. Number 7. Oh, and by the way, on the test, I would want you to write this as a fraction, not as a decimal. Just to let you know, write this as a fraction, not as a decimal, unless it started out as a decimal or it was asked of you to write this as a decimal. Now we come here to number 7. It says let f of x equals 3x plus 2, g of x equals 2x squared minus 6x, and h of x is equal to 3x minus 5 over 4x minus 6, and we have k of x equals negative 5x plus 5. This is a lot, but we can do it. Okay, so now we have g of negative 3. So we will substitute in negative 3 for x in the g of x equation. So we have g of negative 3 is equal to 2 times negative 3 squared minus 6 times negative 3. Now we know negative 3 squared is positive 9. Negative 3 in parentheses squared is positive 9. Times 2 would give us 18. Negative 6 times negative 3 would give us positive 18. 18 plus 18 is 36. So g of negative 3 is equal to 36. And that is your final answer for A. Now for B, we have h of negative 6. So we will substitute in negative 6 wherever x appears in h of x. So I'm going to write it over here, well under here, and then I can move it. So we have h of negative 6 equals 3 times negative 6 minus 5 all over 4 times negative 6 minus 6. Now, 3 times negative 6 we know is negative 18. And negative 18 minus 5 is negative 23. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. Minus 6 is a negative 30. Now we know negative times a negative is positive. So we have h of negative 6 is equal to 23 over 30 because they have nothing else in common. Now we go here to C, f of a plus 4. So we would substitute in a plus 4 wherever x is. So we have f of a plus 4 is equal to 3 times a plus 4 plus 2. So we will use the distributive property here. It'd be 3a plus 12 plus 2. Now we know we have like terms in 12 and 2. So we had 3a plus 14. So we had f of a plus 4 is equal to 3a plus 14. That is the final answer. Now with D, they're telling us that k of x is equal to 4, and we need to solve for x. So we are substituting 4 for k of x. So 4 is equal to negative 5x plus 5. Now, we didn't have to put a parenthesis around the 4 when we substituted because there's nothing else on the same side as k of x. So now we subtract 5 on both sides. So we have negative 1 is equal to a negative 5x. Divide each side by negative 5. And your final answer here would be x is equal to a positive 1/5. Are there any questions on problem number 7? Okay, problem number 8. It says the function g of x is graphed below. Use it to find the values. So we have g of negative 4. Now what this is stating is that we go where x is negative 4, which is here, and then we find the y value. The y value would be negative 1. So your answer here would be negative 1. Now we look here at B. We have x when g of x equals 4. So what we need to do is go where y is 4. Y is 4 here. And then we look for our x value. Now if you look here, this is not quite hitting this point here. So it's like a little bit above 1. So it's like 1.1. But I know probably in your answer key it may have 1 because it may be supposed to hit this little area here. But I'm just letting you know 1.1 or 1 would be fine. Does everyone follow that? Yes.
Shouldn't A be positive?
No, see right here, if you, oh, you know what? Actually, I went a little too far. Thank you. I actually went to negative 5. So it should actually be, with negative 4, it should be positive 1. Thank you. Okay, now, we go down here to see the x-intercept. We look at where the graph hits the x-axis. It only hits the x-axis in this one place here, and that is slightly before negative 5. So it'll be like a negative 4 point, maybe a negative 4.8, somewhere along there. So it'd be negative 4.8, 0 to give you the x-intercept. Now the y-intercept is where the graph hits the y-axis. You notice it's in between 3 and 4, so it'll be about 3.5. So it'll be 0, 3.5. Now the domain. We have to do interval notation here. The domain, it will give us negative 5, and this is included. Negative 5, and it will go to positive 4. That is the domain. Now the range we know as the y values. The lowest y value here is negative 1, and the highest y value here is positive 5, and it's all included. Now we go here to number 9. It says, write the equation of the line whose slope is negative 3/4 and y-intercept is negative 2. So we know that formula, y equals mx plus b. And we know m stands for the slope, so it'll be y equals negative 3/4, and then that's x, and the y-intercept is negative 2, so it'll be minus 2. So your final answer here would be y equals negative 3/4 x minus 2. So that would be your answer for 9A. Now 9B, write the equation of the line that has a slope of 4 and passes through the point negative 8, 5. So now we know we have a slope of 4, and then we have this ordered pair. So we would take that y equals mx plus b formula